Yeah. Boom to the hay, all you sports fans out there in the tubosphere. To you, the individual, as part of the collective. Welcome to Fast Track Sports Rack College here on Talk Radio version of the OMSR. I am your brief but concise host, Will, the alternative ESPN sports thrill. Always do a little show like this and like that. Let you know the clip order coming up and the whys to wherefores. It gets a significantly longer highlight reel that way. Plus, the quickie sport rant of the segment. So we'll talk briefly and concisely about, unfortunately, the passing of the Ultimate Warrior. And a discussion on whole as to wrestling now as it evolved from its roots and steroids, whatnot. Discussion on the herd. So prepare yourself. I edited out some of the more inflammatory comments with all due respect to Colin and the herd. That's what this is all taken from. Stick around for the quickie sport rant. I'm going to tell you how All-Star Wrestling became WWF. It all started in Salt Lake City, Utah, believe it or not, at the Salt Palace with Mean Gene and Hulk Hogan, or at least it was one of the cities. We're going to go in the Wayback Machine to 1982. Fascinating stuff how Vince McMahon was just the ringside announcer who took over for Mean Gene, and the story between him and Jesse the Body Ventura. All the stuff from the late 80s, 90s that helped get the sport to where it is now. You'll love it. In the meantime, we'll let Colin say his piece.
But now we continue to have lots and lots of athletes and players and GMs and coaches. Good for them. I support them anytime they want to be. And by the way, not that this isn't courageous, but the first time you do anything is unique. And now the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, I just don't think it has the same gravitas and the same impact. But I am very happy for the young man from UMass. Apparently he played somewhere else, like a directional school. Then he went to UMass, and he's come out to say, I'm openly gay. Kevin Costner will be here in a couple minutes. By the way, I got all these wrestling fans now going crazy. I don't even know how I got into this topic. I really don't. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, a wrestler passed away, which is sad. He's got 2 daughters. But you go look online and you can see lots of kids in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's one of those stories where there's a story behind the story. And there's massive use of painkillers and HGH. It's kind of a very toxic sort of jambalaya of things to keep you big and strong. And it's a 300-day-a-year job. You don't get paid unless you're working. It's basically, it's all marketing. They write the scripts, and Vince McMahon at one point could write you into stuff and can write you out of stuff. He was the most powerful guy in the sport. So that's where we're at right now. Listen, pro wrestling for the longest time, and it may still be true, wouldn't go to Oregon, even though there was tons of fans. Why? Because they tested for steroids. So I feel bad for the family, but when you have dozens and dozens and dozens of pro wrestlers dying in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you can't use the exception.
Well, I know that, but you cannot lump everybody in together.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but we all do kind of lump all these. Yeah, your phone's breaking up nonstop. Sorry. Listen, I love you can't lump us all in. Well, when you have groups and you have dozens and dozens and dozens of people dying in their 20s and 30s and 40s and early 50s, and these are people that are in shape. These aren't people that are out of shape, people that die. These aren't people dying of cancer. How many of them died of cancer? When you find out that of the 70 early deaths, 67 are of one thing, people are going to lump them together. By the way, if I said to you in America, hijacking, oh, whoa, you are lumping in often young Middle Eastern men. Well, the history of hijacking is not 90-year-old grandmas in Kansas. You get into situations when you have a preponderance of something toward a group, you are going to initially, and in my opinion, reasonably suspect a group. That's the reality of it. So come to terms with it. No other sport's got people dying in their 20s and 30s and 40s like that. I mean, the NFL's got their problems with concussions. You don't see 30 and 40-year-old NFL guys, and I'll get the wrestling fans, give me the Dave Duerson. But this is just an epidemic in this sport.
All guests on the herd appear via the Subway Fresh Take hotline.
By the way, all the booger-eating wrestling nerds are like, hey, Daniel Bryan is a vegan. He's our current champ. He isn't a vegan. He was, but he's not anymore. He's not a vegan. And he's like 215, and it's a marketing shtick because the sport gets so much heat for all of its drug use that they've created this 210, 215-pound guy that's
for free. Order one shirt or thousands. On-time delivery is guaranteed, and we'll even ship your order absolutely free.
Thanks, customing!
All guests on the herd appear via the Subway Fresh Take hotline.
By the way, all the booger-eating wrestling nerds are like, hey, Daniel Bryan is a vegan. He's our current champ. He isn't a vegan. He was, but he's not anymore. He's not a vegan. And he's like 215, and it's a marketing shtick because the sport gets so much heat for all of its drug use that they've created this 210, 215-pound guy that's marketed as a vegan. Remember, this is a fake sport. Okay, they just market stuff. The Undertaker doesn't really dig graves. Okay, they just figure out who's the best storyline. This guy would get tossed into the 8th row by all the guys on stuff. But it's a neat little marketing shtick. He's not a vegan. He may have been a vegan. I was once a teenager. I'm not anymore. What does that mean? I was a vegan for an hour. I ate fish. He's not a vegan. And it's a storyline to sell, because that's all this sport is. It's fake, and they're trying to create storylines to sell merchandise. Oh, their champ, who, by the way, people will get tired of it. He'll sell for a couple years. And this guy, by the way, is from my hometown. That current, he is, actually. By the way, The Rock, remember The Rock? He really wasn't a piece of the Earth's crust. God. You smell what The Rock is cooking. Jesus. I mean, their next champ's going to be some 5'9" lactose intolerant nerd because he'll sell jerseys for an hour, underwear, whatever they sell. Wrestling people are so tedious. Just stop defending the sport. You got guys dying in their 20s and 30s and 40s. We all know why. Stop defending it. Oh, Jesus. I mean, just seriously. You can hear them picking their nose when they call. Ben, go ahead. You're in the herd.
Hey, Colin, I just wanted to say, for the most part, yeah, I do agree with you. A lot of the older wrestlers do have a big issue with past drug use. However, there are a ton of programs, especially now in their new training facility there in Orlando, to prevent any type of, drug use. And they teach them how to budget their money and whatnot. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents about that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, apparently they're cleaning it up. I'm sure it'll be like a monastery in 15 minutes. They'll be like monks in an hour. Yeah, the training facility is a script center where they write the shows. Yeah, we go down to Orlando where they hand us a piece of paper and tell me I'm losing on Tuesday night in the second round. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's just. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason I don't do Sports Nation with Beetle. She likes wrestling. After a while, we had to break up. I'm like, Beetle, I can't do it anymore. We can't be together. We can't be a couple. We just can't do it anymore. It's ridiculous. Can I get to my Kevin Costner interview? Well, he's an actor. I mean, there's some combination. Look at my phone line. Look at my phone lines for all of them. Here they come, just one after another. Just one. And by the way, I think it's terrible anybody dies too young. I do. But I mean, how many times, there's been over 30 people in their 30s, 45 people in their 30s have died. I mean, it's just like, all right, Sarah, you like wrestling too. Go ahead there, Sarah.
Okay. One, I'm not sitting here picking my nose. I have watched wrestling since I was 12 years old.
Okay. So, like, do you and your husband, do you, like, go to events and stuff?
Yes, I do. And our wedding anniversary, we've been together 10 years. He is not into wrestling like I am, but for the wrestling, WrestleMania on Sunday night, he took me there for our wedding anniversary so I could watch wrestling. Maybe they are steroids, I don't know. And I don't care. It is entertaining, it is fun, and I love to watch it.
By the way, Sarah, when you guys got home, do you put the old sleeper hold on you? Pow! Herd delivers a good one. This is what I do. There'll be some message board today. Like I don't even know what the message boards are for wrestling people. And they'll be like all over me today. And so about 4 hours from now, like this will circulate on all the wrestling boards. And then in like 4 or 5 and 6 hours, I'll get a flood of emails from like wrestling guys. Because wrestling guys wouldn't listen to the show. It's reasonably intelligent. They wouldn't listen to the show. They're fishing around on merchandise sites to buy tights and oil. And by the way, they'll send me emails, and their email accounts will be like Turnbuckle Tom.
All right. So some good stuff there. Or not. Right? Depending on your point of view. I will just say, you always want to avoid biting the hand that feeds you, but the OMSR will never treat, excuse me, the respective sports audience with anything but respect. There are no nose pickers, booger eaters, like nobody ever has to pick their nose, right? I mean, the classy thing to do is to do it in private. But it doesn't relate to a particular sport. I mean, that's kind of bogus. And I'll just leave it at that. Quickie sport rant of the segment. It's 1982. The Salt Palace, the venerable Salt Palace, which is now the Salt Lake City Convention Center. Last I heard, OMSR is now in Southern California. But back in the day, in Utah, All-Star Wrestling at the Salt Palace. Mean Gene, your ringside announcer. Hulk Hogan, Baron von Rooster with the claw. Remember all these dudes? Boom. It evolves into WWF. In the late 80s and 90s. Oh gosh. Golly gee gosh willikers. All the personalities from back then. Let's just name a few here. The British Bulldogs, Legion of Doom, Andre. Of course Hulk Hogan. The late Ultimate Warrior, who is the reason why I'm doing the show and the reason Colin was talking with such disdain about wrestling. Bret the Hitman Hart, all these dudes who got WWF and all the incarnations since to the point it is now. Remember the great Kabuki? First MMA athlete ever, always take dudes down with the pressure points and the sleeper hold. Jake the Snake, and of course the managers, Bobby the Weasel and Jimmy the Snake. And of course I'd like to end with Jimmy Superfly, 20 feet in the air. Now I submit to all of you that back then, wrestling was more real, if not real, with quotations, quote unquote, than it is now. I couldn't necessarily defend wrestling now, but I can back then. Alright, so here's the deal. Vince McMahon took over for Mean Gene. He's just the ringside play-by-play guy. Jesse the Body Ventura was the color analyst for 2 years. They're sitting there, and from day one they had an antagonistic relationship. So Jesse's talking about, yeah, I did this movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Vince is like, oh, please, you haven't done it. Yeah, that movie was Predator. So you do the year, before that came out. Guess what? Jesse the Body Ventura is in that movie. Question being, how did Vince McMahon go from being that dude to where he is now? I submit to you that with all the chair bashing and the real bleeding and the unscriptedness of the real sport going on, it popped into his head, wouldn't this be great, the way the crowd reacts to all this stuff going on? Ultimate Warrior coming down to save Ric Flair's butt, for being bashed in with the table, having his head bashed in with the table, and all this stuff going on. He would never admit it, but it's a possibility. Don't let Colin get you down about watching wrestling now or even back then. It has nothing to do with IQ, whether you're single or not, or socioeconomic status. All the video highlights courtesy to ESPN. Everything else to the OMSR. All right, we lit it out again.